Little John and the tanner had been watching all that passed, but when they saw the stranger drag the sapling up from the earth and heard the reading of snapping of his roots, the tanner pursed his lips together, drawing his breath between them in a long inward whistle. "By the breath of my body," said Little John, as soon as he could gather his wits from his wonder. "Sawest thou that, Arthur? Marry, I think our poor master will stand by an ill chance with that fellow. By Our Lady, he plucked up yon tree thee as it was a barley straw." Whenever Robin Hood thought, he stood in his ground, and now he and the stranger in scarlet stood face to face. Well did Robin Hood hold his own that day as a mid-country yeoman. This way and that way fought, and back and forth, Robin's skill against the stranger's strength. The dust of the highway rose up around them like a cloud, so that at the time Little John and the tanner could see nothing, but only hear the rattle of the strangers against one another. Thrice Robin Hood struck the stranger, once upon the arm, and twice upon the ribs, and yet he had warded all the other's blows, only one of which, had it met its mark, would have laid stout Robin lower in the dust than he had ever gone before. At last the stranger struck Robin's cudgel so fairly in the middle that he could hardly hold his staff in his hands. Again he struck, and Robin bent beneath the blow. A third time he struck, and now not only fairly beaten down Robin's guard, but gave him such a rap also that down he tumbled into the dust. He wrote. "Hold!" cried Robin Hood, when he saw the stranger raising his staff once more. "I yield me." "Hold!" cried Little John, bursting from his cover with the tanner at his heels. "Hold! Give over, I say." "Nay," answered the stranger quietly, "if there be two more of you, and each as stout as his good fellow, I am like to have my hands full. Nevertheless, come on, and I will strive my best to serve you all." "Stop!" cried Robin Hood. "We will fight no more. I take my vow, this is an ill day for thee and me, Little John. I do verily believe that my wrist and eke my arm are placed by the jaw of the blow that this stranger struck me." Then Little John turned to Robin Hood. "Why, how now, good master," said he. "Alas, thou art in ill plight. Marry, thy years is all befouled with the dust of the road. Let me help thee to rise." "A plague on thy aid," cried Robin angrily. "I can get to my feet without thy help, good fellow." "Nay, but let me at least dust thy coat off thee. I fear the poor bones are mightily sore," quoth Little John soberly, but with a sly twinkle in his eyes. "Give over, I say," quoth Robin in a fume. "My coat hath been dusty enough already, without aid of thine." Then turning to the stranger he said, "What may be thy name, good fellow?" "My name is Gunwell," answered the other. "Ha!" cried Robin, "it is even so. I have near kin of this name. Whence comest thou, fair friend?" "From Maxfield town I come," answered the stranger. "There was I born and bred, and thence I come to seek my mother's younger brother, whom men call Robin Hood, so if perhaps thou mayest direct me." "Ha! Will Gamwell," cried Robin, placing both hands upon the other's shoulder and holding him off at arm's length. "Surely it can be no other. I might have known thee by thy pretty maiden air of thine, that dainty, finikin manner of game. Though thou do not know me, lad, look upon me well." "No, by the breath of my body," cried the other. I do believe from my heart that thou art mine own Uncle Robin. Nay, certain is it so. And each flung his arm around the other, kissing upon the cheek. Then once more Robin held his kinsman off at arm's length, and scanned him keenly from top to toe. Why, how now, quoth he, what change is here? Very, some 8 or 10 years ago I left thee, a stripling lad, with great joints and ill-hung lumps, and lo, here thou art, as tight a fellow as e'er I see my eyes upon. Dost thou not remember, lad, how I showed thee the proper way to nip the goose feathers betwixt thine fingers and throw out by bow arm steadily? Thou gayest great promise of being a keen archer, and dost thou not mind how I told thee to fet and panty with the cudgel? Yea, said young Gamwell, and I did, so looked up the tree, and though thee so above all other men that I make my vow, had I no vow thou wert, I have never have dared to lift hand against thee this day. I trust I did not great harm. No, quoth Robin hastily, and looking sideways at Little John. Thou didst not harm me, but say no more of that, I pray thee. Yet I will say, lad, that I hope I may never feel again such a blow as thou didst give me. Verily, my arm thou jingles yet from fingernail to elbow. Truly, I saw that I was pleasured for life. I tell thee, cause, that thou art the strongest man that I ever laid my eyes upon. I take my vow. I felt my stomach quake when I beheld thee pluck upon the green tree as thou didst. But tell me, how comest that thou leave Sir Edward and thy mother? Alas, answered good Gamwell, it is an ill story, uncle, that I have to tell thee. My father Stewart, who come to us after old Gilly's crook-leg died, was ever a saucy velvet, and I know not why my father kept him, saving that he did oversee with great judgment. It used to gall me to hear him speak up so boldly to my father, who, thou knowest, was ever a patient man to those about him, and slow to anger and harsh words. Well, one day, and an ill day it was for the saucy fellow, he swallowed the breath of my father, I standing by. I could stand it no longer, and good uncle, so stepping forth, I gave him a box o' the ear, and wouldst thou believe it, the fellow straightway did it though. I think they said I broke his neck, or something o' the like. So off they packed me to seek thee and escape the law. I was on my way when I saw me, and here I am. Well, by the faith of my heart, quoth Robin Hood, for anyone escaping the law, thou walkest it the most easily that ever I beheld in all my life. Whenever did anyone in all the world see one who had slain a man, and was escaping because of it, tripping along the highway like a dainty caught damsel, sniffing at a rose at the while? Nay, uncle, answered Will Granwell, overharst never kernst good butter, as the old saying hath it. Moreover, I do well believe that this overstrength of my body hath taken the nimblest out of my heels. Why thou didst but just now rap me twice, and I thee never at once, save by overbearing thee by my strength. Nay, quoth Robin, let us say no more at that score. I am right glad to see thee, Will, and thou wilt add great honour and credit to my band of merry fellows. But thou must change thy name, for warrants will be out presently against thee, so because of the gay clothes thou shalt henceforth and for aye be called Will Scarlet. Will Scarlet, quoth Little John, stepping forward and reaching out his great palm, which the other took. Will Scarlet, the name filleth thee well. Right glad am I to welcome thee among us. I am called Little John, and this is a new number who has just joined us, a stout tenor named Arthur Bland. Thou art like to achieve fame, Will? Let me tell thee, for thee will be a merry ballad sung about the country, and merry and many stories told of Sherwood, of how Robin Hood taught the Little John and Arthur a Bland the proper way to use the quarterstaff, likewise, as it were, how our good master bit off so long a piece of cake that he choked on it. Nay, good Little John, quoth Robin gently, for he liked ill to have such a yeast told of him. Why should we speak of this little matter? Pray thee, let us keep this day's doing among ourselves. With all my heart, quoth Little John, but good master, I thought that thou didst laugh a merry story, because thou hast often made a yeast about a certain increase or farthness on my joints, or flesh covered by my adbidden with the sheriff of. Nay, good Little John, said Robin hastily, I do bethink me I will say full enough of that score. It is well, quoth Little John, for in truth myself have tired of it somewhat. But now I bethink me, thou didst also seem midst to make a yeast of the rain that threatenest last night, so. Nay then, said Robin testily, I was mistaken. I remember me now, it did seem to threaten rain. Truly, I did not think it myself, quoth Little John, therefore no doubt thou dost think it was wise of me to abide all night at the Blue Boar Inn, instead of venturing forth in such a stormy weather, thou dost not? A pledge of thee and thy doings, cried Robin Hood, if thou wilt have it so. Thou wert right to abide whatever thou didst chosen. Once more, it is well, quoth Little John. As for myself, I have been blind this day. I did not see the drubbet, I did not see the tumbling heels overhead in the dust, and if any man says that thou wert, I can with a clear conscience rattle his lying tongue between his teeth. Come, cried Robin, biting his nether lips, while the other could not forbear laughing. We will go no further today, but we will return to Sherwood, and those shall go to Ancaster any time. Another, Little John. So, said Robin, for now that his bones were sore, he felt as though a long journey would be an ill thing for him. So turning their backs, they reached the steps whence they came.